Welcome to Communicating Health. My name is Professor Linda Brennan. I'm based in the School of Media and Communication at RMIT University. This presentation was prepared in conjunction with Xinyi Qin, who has worked with us through the project over many years. The presentation is a summary of the outcomes of all the research associated with the NH&MRC project Communicating Health. It illustrates the communication strategies that can be applied to the living and eating for health segments. We call them the LEHs, but they're just LEHS. Young people are increasingly difficult to reach with many health promotion messages and have indeed started maladaptive counter movements to overcome what they see as limits to their personal freedoms. Our research shows that counter-communication can be effective when it comes to increasing elaboration of the message and therefore cognitive appraisal of the message. That is, the more people think about something, the more likely they are to respond by problem solving. Furthermore, the use of humour in conjunction with other emotions may increase self-motivated moderation of behaviours. Self-motivation is a necessary precursor to sustained behaviour change. From a macro-social perspective, designing interventions that shift the locus of motivation from others, governments, non-profit organisations and so on, back towards the individual may prompt individuals to accept responsibility for their actions and become self-regulating within the norms of their micro-social group. Governments and health promoters may consider reforms of the environment to support consumers as agents of their own self-determined behaviours, rather than contest them using negative appeals designed to instigate flight or fight or worse, freezing. So our research shows that self-motivation is necessary. Self-determination theory posits 5 classifications of motivated behaviour, ranging from amotivation through different levels of extrinsic motivation and lastly to intrinsic motivation. A more autonomous and self-determined form of extrinsic motivation, such as identified regulation or integration regulation, encourages people to take ownership of the activity, thus stimulating engagement, commitment, and increased effort put into the activity at hand. Self-determined behaviours are sustained over time. Results from various studies in education and healthcare contexts also support this notion. This model is from Ryan and DC 2000. I think it's open access, so you can gain an idea from looking at it. The relevant regulatory processes for self-determination and motivation are interest, enjoyment, and inherent satisfaction, including the achievement of personal goals, or indeed just having fun. Personal goals are established as part of people's identities, and advertising and communication can be designed to encourage these outcomes. This thoughtful consideration of behaviours in relation to personal goals, that is, cognitive appraisal and elaboration of message, shifts the locus of motivation to behaviour from other-directed to self-directed, consequently allowing for greater cognitive processing and thinking and thus proactive engagement in longer-term positive behaviours. People have to want to change for their own reasons. The trick is finding a reason that suits the individual. Communication that aims to change unhealthy behaviours to healthy ones is termed counter-communication. That is, it's countering prevailing norms, habits, and daily life. Health communication, usually advertising, is created in order to persuade the receiver to change a position, behaviour, attitude, intentions, and so on. The appeal should be reflective of the consumer's desires and therefore more closely aligned to the target market and positioning strategy. That is, more market, audience, and thus receiver focused rather than consisting principally of the image or message sought to be projected by the sender or the advertiser. However, in social advertising and counter-communication, the principal focus of the message is to counter physical and social desires with a rational and also emotionally charged message. Thus, the message content is often antithetical to the desires that motivate the purchase or consumption of food. Telling me to eat healthy when I have a bowl of hot chips in front of me is really a difficult message. Food counter-advertising has to overcome any existing food marketing activities as well. Macro-social or contextual factors that arrive in the environment, as well as overcoming any microsystem factors such as desires, the hedonic value of food, rewards and pleasures, and so on. Further, most counter-advertising campaigns appear to be premised on the learn, feel, do model of advertising, the assumption that people will do things differently once they learn they are harmful. We have found in our research that overcoming habits and rituals, that is, simply being, is difficult, and it's unlikely that a rational, knowledge-based campaign will be effective. Negatively framed counter-advertising can induce reactance as well. That's when people push back against your ideas, and it will therefore produce transgressive behaviours if the message is strong enough, and this will defeat the social purpose of advertising altogether. The effect you are seeking with messaging is sort of a formula that leads to a behaviour. And of course you don't know what the ingredients are until you try and fail with a particular group. However, in the context of marketing and advertising, we define these emotions or appeals as internal to the person. They are felt responses to some internal or external stimuli. They're mental, that is, they're abstract and not physically observable, and they're able to be reported because they're cognitively processed at some level. They're valenced, that is, they will attract or repel the person towards some object, event or agent external to the person, and an attitude can be an object in this setting. They're variable in intensity and effect, and they're transient. They don't last for a long period of time. They're also triggered by a wide variety of physical, social, and psychological stimuli. Getting a response from the audience or the consumer is contingent on the outcome of the factors on this page. And now your head is going to hurt because I'm going to give you some definitions of these terms. So they are contingent on valence. So is your message positive or negative? So valence is the level of pleasantness that an event generates and is defined along a continuum from negative to positive. It's also contingent on goal orientation, which are the reasons for engaging in the activity in the first place, remembering, of course, that your reasons are not your audience's reasons. It's contingent on response action, which are the actions taken in response to the stimulus. It's also contingent on regulatory fit, and this goes back to the self-determination model theory. Regulatory fit is the match between the goal of the person and the required actions. The closer the required action is to the person's own motivations, the more persuasive the message will be. Regulatory fit can influence persuasion by making message recipients feel right during reception of the message. It also increases the recipient's strength of engagement with the message, and that contributes to processing of the message and influences the type of elaboration and the likelihood of elaboration, and I'll come to that idea later. There is also locus of processing, which is the flow of information through the human nervous system, from the central nervous system, that is the brain, in which cognitive thinking and appraising of the situation takes place, and to the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, which is physically reacting without much thinking. These are things like reflex responses and so on. There is also locus of motivation, and the locus of motivation can be external, and you've heard of extrinsic motivation, I assume, or internal, and that is intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation promotes autonomous and self-directed behaviours in the self-determination model. There's also the style of information processing. Styles are tendency to use analytical or intuitive or heuristic approaches to making choices. Some people prefer to think about things and others don't. Processing styles influence decision processes and outcomes. There is also the time frame of motivational effects rather. The effects of motivation wear off over time. There is an initiation process, but the effects of this will fade as the person moves on with their lives. That gets back to the temporariness of motivation described earlier. There is then the type of elaboration, and for this we refer to the elaboration likelihood model, which suggests that there are two routes to persuasion: the direct or central route, which is where the person is cognitively engaged in the message. That is, the message goes straight through to where you want it to. And then there is the indirect or peripheral route, which is where the message is not cognitively processed and people simply respond to the stimuli without thinking. Then there is response, and this is when people react to a stimulus. Responses can be to turn towards an objective or goal, or to turn away from the objective or goal. Finally comes the outcome or behavior. In the behavior change literature, the desired response is ideally an outcome of the communication strategy. However, behavior might not be physical action. It might be thinking more deeply, changing attitudes, and so on. People also can become more actively engaged in problem solving, or not, depending on their other responses. It is important to bear in mind that these responses are a continuum. They're not discrete or mutually exclusive categories. They can and do overlap with each other. So while we've presented these in a table format, this is merely for ease of communication. The table summarizes the effects of positive and negative communication strategies. For example, positive emotions lead to more active problem solving and less urge to escape the situation. For long-term sustainable behavior change, positive emotions also lead to more rational and cognitive engagement with the issue and the message. Negative emotions can lead to avoidance of the issue and retreat or self-protection motivation. Negative emotions can lead to more immediate reactions, though. So, choosing your strategy is dependent on the urgency of the situation. As people are primed for survival, negative emotions such as fear can invoke immediate action. However, long-term sustained behavior change will only occur if the individual accepts personal responsibility for the actions required. The living and eating for health segments identified by our research have been profiled into 6 segments. Lifestyle mavens, who responded to the question, "I'm passionate about healthy eating and health plays a big part in my life. I use social media to follow active lifestyle personalities or get new recipes and exercise ideas. I may even buy superfoods or follow a particular type of diet. I like to think I'm super healthy." Then there's the health conscious, who responded with, "I'm health conscious and being healthy and eating healthy is important to me. Although health means different things to different people, I make conscious lifestyle decisions about eating based on what I believe healthy means. I look for new recipes and healthy eating information on social media." Then there is the aspirational healthy eaters, who stated that, "I aspire to be healthy but struggle sometimes. Healthy eating is hard work. I've tried to improve my diet, but I always find things that make it difficult to stick with the changes. Sometimes I notice recipe ideas or healthy eating hacks, and if it seems easy enough, I'll give it a go." Then we have the balanced all-rounders, who try to live a balanced lifestyle and think that all foods are okay in moderation. They think they shouldn't have to feel guilty about eating a piece of cake now and again, and they get all sorts of inspiration from social media, like finding out about new restaurants, fun recipes, and sometimes healthy eating tips. Our segment Contemplating Another Day respond, "I'm contemplating healthy eating, but it's not a priority for me right now. I know the basics about what it means to be healthy, but it doesn't seem relevant to me right now. I've taken a few steps to be healthier, but I'm not motivated to make it a high priority because I've got too many other things going on in my life." And then we have the blissfully unconcerned, who responded, "I'm not bothered about healthy eating. I don't really see the point and I don't think about it. I don't really notice healthy eating tips or recipes, and I don't care what I eat." So in conclusion, we stress that initiatives need to be designed to ensure that relevant participants are part of the co-creation process and that their segments are considered in creating health promotion programs. And that health promotion programs need to be targeted, personal, and relevant to increase involvement and engagement. It's our firm belief that co-creation, empowering and enable participation is a key to the successful engagement of young people with social media and health promotion. The next few slides are taking our lifestyle segments and talking about what that means from a communications perspective. We start with our lifestyle maven, who is self-determined and persuasive. They like to feel as if they know a lot about nutrition and actively seek to impart their learning to others. They also have a number of motivations that mean they can be relied on to be educated about the topics. They're not necessarily experts, however, as they do not have health or nutrition qualifications. Some do, most don't. They can be relied on to keep up to date with new news. They tend to be curators and creators on social media. The strategies for motivating lifestyle mavens to act are to promote their expertise. For example, to respond to posts with a reward of some kind. For example, say "well said" or "congratulations." Build advocacy. Directly ask mavens to speak on behalf of the topic of choice. Provide them with shareable content that's useful to others in their network. Provide help for them to support others because they like supporting others. Think about what type of help they might find useful in sharing their expertise and provide that support. For example, providing plain language summaries of academic research and making it available to the maven to share with their network. Be niche and targeted in your social media. Mavens don't want to be part of the crowd. You need to foster the exclusive mentality and being a member of a small group dynamics. While they are happy to be followers, they're unlikely to be following many people themselves. Provide opportunities for growth. They want to learn and they want to participate and they want to keep up to date. Provide them with new news on a regular basis, preferably something they can share. The health conscious are somewhat self-determining. They try to be in control of themselves and they certainly understand the healthy eating message. However, they are slightly less determined than mavens in that they will accept information as it comes to them and do not necessarily actively search for different types of information about health and nutrition. The health conscious also have a tendency to allow circumstances to come between them and healthy eating. They also have a tendency to feel guilty when they're not abiding by what they see as social norms or expected good behaviours. While health, well-being and nutrition are important to them, there are many other things that tend to be more important. In terms of communicating to the health conscious, it's important to promote the idea that they can be in control of what happens to them and what happens in the environment surrounding their behaviours. Because there is already guilt present, it's not a good idea to increase anxiety levels by using fear or threats. "You will die of a heart attack if you keep eating animal products" is not persuasive, as you may incite self-protection and avoidance instead. Try to avoid fear campaigns as they can lead to stasis, freezing, and amotivation. It is also important to focus on the things that matter to them beyond healthy eating and healthy lifestyles. For example, provide the benefits of being able to be active and social instead of concentrating on the negatives of poor lifestyle choices. The health conscious already have a good solid repertoire of behaviours, but they need support in continuing and maintaining those behaviours. For example, ensuring that social media is accessible and available and that they understand their role in their own self-determined health journey. For the balanced all-rounder, motivation is what we call introjected, which means that they'll be motivated on the spot at a particular time, but not motivated continuously. This means that they will respond to a message, but unfortunately only when it's in the here and now. What this means is it's very difficult to maintain behaviours over time because other priorities intervene and other motivations intervene and are momentarily more important. The balanced all-rounder has a moderate locus of control. What this means is that they are sometimes empowered and enabled and able to do things in their own way, but other times they will cede control to others. They can be motivated by referring to others. They like to be self-controlled, but they also like to be normal and to do things that other people are doing. They consider short-term things more than long-term things, and their motivations are a positive self-image, even if that means they're lying to themselves, and enjoyment. From a communication perspective, it's important to build strategies that enable people to be empowered in the choices they make, helping them establish self-control, helping them understand that self-control is within their capabilities and that others do not have to direct their behaviours. However, that said, because they are so other-related, it's also important that strategies build on the social connections that the balanced all-rounder has already got in place. Communication strategies should focus on immediacy and not talk about the long-term potential goals of a healthy lifestyle. The long-term view is not particularly interesting to our balanced all-rounder, and the consequences of that is that more immediate costs and benefits are likely to be more persuasive. The balanced all-rounder is also susceptible to guilt, but not as susceptible to anxiety. They can leave an idea behind if it doesn't suit them. However, communicators can use those motivations to build up on positive feelings, especially by focusing on positive outcomes in the here and now. For example, an immediate benefit of eating healthfully is that good nutrition can improve mood and provide energy. So appeals like feeling tired, don't pop a pill, try eating healthy food instead might be useful for this group. This will be dependent on finding what the benefit is from the health-conscious consumer's point of view and packaging that up for them. The aspirational healthy eater is motivated by others and therefore is extrinsically motivated. Motivation is introjected and is therefore externalized from the individual. The individual does identify with the ideas underpinning healthy eating and feels that those ideas apply to them. However, because they have a relatively lower level of locus of control, they also have a tendency to do whatever is immediate and in front of them rather than think long-term about the consequences of their actions. Motivations for this group are things like fear of missing out, status and praise speaking, belonging particularly to exclusive groups. They are also loss avoiders in that a loss is more important than a gain, or avoiding a loss is more important than a gain. Consequently, messages should be about helping them avoid the immediate and short-term negatives of not pursuing a healthy lifestyle. This group also want to feel that they are competent and in charge. From a communications perspective, building a strategy around appeals to social connections can help. Building competency by providing messages that support their sense of empowerment and their sense of control will be important in gaining traction with this group. For example, you've got this, you can do this, will provide people with the support they need to say no if they need to and when they bump up against the social pressure from their groups. Aspirational healthy eaters are also seekers after positivity. They don't want to know about the health problems that can occur, and they certainly don't want to think more than a year or two ahead when it comes to their particular behaviours. In their view, there's always time to be healthy later. The segment contemplating another day are those that don't particularly care about the issue of healthy lifestyles. They do not see the benefit in making restrictions to their lifestyles, although many of them understand the message of healthy eating and healthy living. Contemplating another day can be motivated, but it will be externally directed. They are also likely to be amotivated and not care at all about the specific issues. For example, whilst they might occasionally have a meat-free Monday, they're not necessarily doing that for any vegetarian, vegan, environmental or health reasons. Similar to the aspirational healthy eaters, they think if they need to be healthy, they can do that later in life. They don't see any short-term consequences associated with unhealthy behaviours such as eating high-fat, high-sugar or energy-rich, low-density nutrition foods. When it comes to motivation, they can be made to comply, but often this will result in reactance. They are also procrastinators when it comes to their own behaviours, and they are more likely to procrastinate than they are to act. Pleasure seeking is one of the key motivations, and pleasure outweighs any of the other motivations. This also extends to the avoidance of discomfort. Comfort in this context is both psychological and physical. Shame appeals are particularly a no-go zone with this group, although fear can initiate action. When it comes to communication strategies, it will be helpful to rely on others within the social network to undertake the persuasion task. Building up the social pressure and providing localized support within the behavioral environment will enable more healthy choices to be made. Providing opportunities for healthy eating and healthy lifestyles will be beneficial to this group. Focusing on the pleasurable in healthy eating and healthy lifestyles is also something that could be persuasive in this particular group. Bearing in mind that they're likely to respond with reactance if they feel overtly pressured by someone outside their social group, communication strategies should try to avoid being paternalistic. The blissfully unconcerned are just that, unconcerned. It's not that they can be made to be concerned because they won't be concerned. If anything, they've developed a Teflon shield that stops them from being concerned about the issues of healthy eating. Blissfully unconcerned are the type of people who say, well, if you want people to stop smoking, then just ban it altogether. In this sense, they cede control to others, and they don't feel as if they have to be motivated to act on their own behalf. They are very good at providing a rationale for why their healthy lifestyles remain unattainable. A majority of these reasons will be about what happens to intervene in lifestyle choices. This group are likely to respond with reactance to any kind of messaging about health, be it positive or negative. They are relatively complacent and will prioritize convenience and comfort along with their personal desires over any overtly healthy lifestyle choice. They are unwilling to make sacrifices in order to be healthier. In communicating to this group, be positive. Find and put forward alternative behaviours that are comfortable and convenient and try to promote them. If something is likely to be a sacrifice, downplay the inconvenience and discomfort elements. Try to find the benefits that relate to them. Some of these benefits, whilst they are self-evident to us in the health sector, are not benefits to the blissfully unconcerned. Also, I think it's important to give this relatively small segment, it might be feasible to accept the limitations that this group is probably unpersuadable. This doesn't mean that you ignore them completely, but spending a vast amount of money to shift them nowhere in terms of behaviour change is probably not an investment of resources that is well made. Our research has shown us that people are different enough to warrant different strategies in trying to communicate with them. However, we still don't know. Where does well-designed communication fit into the health intervention model? We know that communication can fit into an overarching marketing strategy. However, intervening in people's lives without understanding the direct benefit to them is likely to be ineffective. We need to know more about how to build communication into interventions. What this means is that communication is not an intervention in and of itself. At the end of this project, we also do not know if communication can shift someone away from something which is inherently pleasurable, such as food, and towards something that is less fun and more personally responsible. In our emerging adults, this was particularly problematic. Our emerging adults prioritize immediate pleasure seeking over health, especially if it's long-term outcomes we are seeking for them. One of the biggest problems we faced is that lifestyle changes require a total change of someone's entire way of being who they are. Focusing on the psychology is not enough. Focusing on the emotions is not enough. Finding a way to integrate the various motivations into an interventional campaign is going to be an important direction for our future research. As a result of our partial successes, we do not know that health communication works effectively in all settings. We do need more research on how it works in specific situations, especially those situations where the consumer will almost inevitably not like the message. Our Contemplating Another Day and Blissfully Unconcerned segments will be the focus of future research as well. This slide is provided for the nerds in our family who want to understand the derivation of the response continuum. The references in the middle column will provide you with the theories that we use to create this table. The Communicating Health team have produced a website with all the tips and techniques for health professionals to use in communicating to their clients, patients, or just generally people. We'd love to get your ideas on what you think we could do next. If you have any ideas for how we can help you, please let us know via the site. Thank you for your interest in the Communicating Health project.